The stars looked different from the observation deck of the UES Horizon. Captain Alan Frost stood with his hands behind his back, watching as the massive Araxian diplomatic vessel approached. His reflection in the glass showed a man in his 40s, with deep brown eyes and a face that had seen just enough hardship to be interesting, but not enough to be worn. "Nervous, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Maya Powell as she joined him at the window. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly according to regulation, but nothing could regulate the excitement in her eyes. "Not nervous," Alan said. "Cautious. There's a difference. First alien species we've ever contacted, sir. I think a little nervousness would be normal." Alan almost smiled. "That's why I'm the captain, Powell." The truth was, Alan felt the weight of humanity on his shoulders. The Araxians had answered Earth's deep space signals 3 months ago. Their technology was clearly centuries ahead of humanity's. Their ships could travel faster than light. They had medicines that could cure diseases humans still struggled with. And they had weapons that could, in theory, end human civilization with minimal effort. Yet they had come in peace. The Araxian ship docked with a gentleness that seemed impossible for something so large. Alan straightened his uniform and touched the small photo in his pocket, his wife Laura and their son Ben, back on the Europa colony. If he succeeded in this mission, Ben would grow up in a galaxy full of possibilities instead of just one small solar system. "It's time," said Commander Victor Kelly, Alan's second in command. "The delegation is ready in the meeting hall." Alan nodded and followed Victor through the corridors of the Horizon. Crew members stopped to salute as they passed. Everyone understood what today meant. The meeting hall had been specially designed for this moment. A large round table dominated the center, with the flags of Earth nations along one wall and screens showing views of Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies on another. "Remember," Alan said quietly to his team as the airlock began to cycle, "no sudden movements. Follow the protocol exactly as we practiced." The door slid open. The Araxians entered in perfect formation. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with sleek bodies covered in what looked like smooth scales that shifted color slightly as they moved. Their heads had no visible ears, just small sensory pits, and their 4 eyes, too large, too small, blinked, independently of each other. Most striking were their hands, 6-fingered and capable of bending in ways human hands never could. The lead Araxian stepped forward. "Greetings, Captain Alan Frost of Earth," it said in perfect English. "I am First Emissary Zexalu of the Araxian Collective. We come with open minds and peaceful purpose." Alan stepped forward and performed the greeting gesture they had been taught. "First Emissary, on behalf of all humanity, welcome. We are honored by your presence and eager to learn from each other." The first meeting lasted 6 hours. The Araxians were curious about everything: human biology, culture, history, technology. They seemed especially interested in Earth's wars, asking detailed questions about strategy and weapons development. At the time, Alan thought they were just trying to understand human psychology. Over the weeks that followed, the relationship flourished. The Araxians shared medical knowledge that led to cures for 3 types of cancer. They helped improve Earth's space travel capabilities. They invited human scientists to visit their ships and learn. Alan sent regular messages home to Laura and Ben. "The galaxy just got a whole lot bigger," he told them during one call. "When I get back, I'll take you both to see the Araxian Botanical Gardens. They have plants that sing, Ben, actually sing." 6 months into the diplomatic mission, the Araxians suggested establishing an exchange program. A permanent human embassy would be set up on one of their worlds, and they would maintain a presence on Europa, which they found fascinating due to its ocean beneath the ice. Alan thought it was a perfect arrangement. Europa was where Laura and Ben lived. He might even get reassigned closer to home. 2 years passed. The exchange program thrived. Thousands of Araxians now lived among humans throughout the solar system, and a smaller number of humans had traveled to Araxian worlds. Earth's technology advanced rapidly with Araxian help. Diseases were vanishing. Clean energy was abundant. It seemed like the beginning of a golden age. Alan had been promoted to admiral for his role in establishing first contact. He was in his office on Earth when the news came. "Sir?" his aide said, face pale as she rushed in without knocking. "Europa colony has gone dark." "What do you mean dark?" Alan's heart began to pound. "All communications stopped 20 minutes ago. The long-range telescopes show," she hesitated. "They show explosions on the surface." Alan rushed to the command center. The screen showed chaos. Europa's surface, once dotted with the lights of the colony, now flashed with fire, and surrounding the moon were ships, Araxian war vessels unlike the diplomatic ships they had shown humans before. "Get me the Araxian ambassador now," Alan shouted. But the Araxian embassy had been evacuated an hour earlier. They had slipped away while preparing their attack. Reports began flooding in from throughout the solar system. Araxian citizens had disappeared from every human settlement. Their diplomatic vessels had all left orbit simultaneously. Then came the message. It appeared on every screen across Earth and the colonies. The face of an Araxian, not the friendly ambassadors they had come to know, but one with military markings on its scales. "People of Earth, the assessment phase is complete. The Araxian collective has determined your species is unsuitable for partnership, but valuable for resources. Your colonies are now under our control. Resistance will result in the destruction of your homeworld. We thank you for your cooperation during our evaluation period." The transmission ended. Alan stared at the blank screen, his world collapsing. "Laura," he whispered. "Ben." Communications with Europa slowly came back online as surviving colonists restored emergency systems. The reports were devastating. 40,000 dead. The colony's main dome breached. The Araxian Cultural Center had been a weapons platform all along. Among the confirmed dead were Laura and Ben Frost. 3 days later, as Earth prepared for war, a scientist discovered the truth. Hidden in the medical technology the Araxians had shared was a subtle way to gather human biological data. The cultural exchange had been a cover to study humans for weaknesses. Worse, intelligence recovered from a damaged Araxian communication device revealed that humanity was the 18th species the Araxians had approached this way. The others had all been conquered or destroyed. In a secure underground facility, Earth's leaders gathered. Alan sat silently as generals and politicians argued about how to respond. Finally, he stood up. The room fell quiet. His face, once diplomatic and hopeful, had hardened into something new. 2 years ago, I welcomed the Araxians as friends, he said. I believed we had found our place in a larger community of worlds. He paused, his voice becoming steel. I was wrong. They studied us to exploit us. They pretended friendship while planning our destruction. They killed my family and thousands of others. He looked around the room, meeting every eye. But they made a mistake. They should have killed us all at once. Now we know what we're facing, and we will show them something they've never seen before, a species that punches back. The room was silent for a moment. Then someone began to applaud. Others joined in. The war had begun, and humanity would not go quietly. 5 years passed since the attack on Europa. The war with the Araxians had not gone well for humanity. Earth's orbital defenses had been breached twice. Millions were dead. Mars had fallen entirely to the enemy. Humanity was using every resource. It had to fight, but the Araxians were simply too advanced. Their ships could move faster, their weapons hit harder, and their shields withstood most human attacks. Admiral Alan Frost was no longer the hopeful diplomat. His face had grown hard and lined, his hair mostly gray now. He stood in the command, center of Earth's last major military base, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was dimly lit, filled with the glow of screens showing the positions of the few remaining human fleets. They've taken the Neptune outpost, said General Patricia Ellis, pointing to a flashing red marker on the main display. That's the third outpost this month. Alan nodded grimly. How many ships did we lose? 6, but they managed to evacuate. Most of the civilians first. It was a small victory, but Alan would take any victory these days. He looked around the room at the tired faces of Earth's military leaders. They were fighting a losing war, and everyone knew it. Admiral, said a young communications officer. "Dr. Collins is requesting your presence in Laboratory 7. Alan exchanged a glance with Patricia. Dr. Natalie Collins was humanity's best hope, a brilliant scientist leading Project Nemesis in a facility beneath the Pacific Ocean. If anyone could find a way to defeat the Araxians, it would be her. "Tell her I'll be there in 20 minutes, Alan said. The journey to Laboratory 7 required taking a high-speed underground train. As Alan sat alone in the car, watching the tunnel walls flash by, he thought about how much the world had changed. Before the war, these tunnels didn't exist. Now much of human civilization had moved underground, away from the Araxian attacks from space. Dr. Collins met him at the lab entrance. She was in her 30s, with short red hair and eyes that rarely blinked when she was thinking deeply. Right. Now those eyes looked excited. "We found something, Admiral," she said without greeting, leading him into the lab. "Something the Araxians don't know we know." The laboratory was massive, filled with equipment salvaged from research centers around the world. Scientists worked at various stations, many studying pieces of damaged Araxian technology. "What did you find?" Alan asked. Natalie led him to a secure room in the back. Inside was a strange device that pulsed with a soft blue light. It looked like a mix of crystal and metal, with no obvious controls. "This is an intact piece of an Araxian communications module," she explained. "Commander King's team recovered it during their last raid." Alan knew about Commander Darius King. The man led what remained of Earth's special forces on seemingly suicidal missions against Araxian supply lines. Somehow he kept coming back alive, usually with valuable intelligence. "We've been studying how the Araxians communicate," Natalie continued. "Their whole society is based on a type of hive mind. Each Araxian is an individual, but they're also connected to the collective consciousness through quantum entanglement." Alan frowned. "In simple terms, Doctor, they're all linked together. It's how their ships coordinate so perfectly. But here's the thing. We've discovered a vulnerability in their network, a way to potentially disrupt their communications." For the first time in years, Alan felt a spark of hope. "How?" "We're developing a virus. Not a biological one, but a quantum algorithm that could infiltrate their network and cause chaos in their hive-mind connection." Before they could discuss further, an alarm sounded. Alan's communicator beeped urgently. "Admiral, we have an incoming transmission from Commander King," said the voice of his aide. "His team is under heavy fire, but they've captured something you need to see immediately." Alan rushed back to the command center. On the main screen was the face of Commander Darius King, a man with dark skin and a scar running from his left eye to his jaw. Behind him, explosions illuminated what looked like the interior of an Araxian vessel. "Admiral," King shouted over the noise of battle, "we infiltrated an Araxian cruiser. Found out what they're doing with our captured soldiers." The camera panned shakily to show rows of clear containers. Inside each was a human body, connected to tubes and wires. Some were still moving. "They're not just killing our people," King said grimly. "They're experimenting on them, harvesting genetic material. I'm sending you the data we recovered." Alan felt sick as he watched. "Get your team out of there, Commander." "Working on it, sir. But you should know. They're planning something big. Final phase of their conquest. 2 weeks from now, they're bringing in their main fleet." The transmission cut off as another explosion rocked King's position. The command center was silent. Then General Ellis spoke. 2 weeks, that's all we have left." Alan turned to face the room. "Then we have 2 weeks to get Dr. Collins' virus ready. And we need a delivery system, a way to get it into the heart of their fleet." Over the next 14 days, Earth made its final preparations. Dr. Collins and her team worked around the clock, refining their virus. Commander King, who had managed to escape the Araxian cruiser with most of his team, helped plan the delivery mission. The plan was desperate. A small strike force of Earth's fastest ships, modified with technology, reverse-engineered from captured Araxian vessels, would make a run at the Araxian command ship when their fleet arrived. While the remaining Earth defense forces engaged the Araxians in a frontal attack, Essentially a suicide mission, King's team would slip through the chaos and deliver the virus. On the day before the mission, Alan visited the launch bay, where the strike force was preparing. 7 ships, each with a crew of just 5 people, 35 men and women who might save humanity or die trying. Commander King stood inspecting the lead vessel, a sleek black ship that had once been a scientific exploration vessel before the war. "Admiral on deck," someone called, and the busy work paused as people stood at attention. "As you were," Alan said quietly. He approached King. "How are the preparations?" "As good as they can be, sir," King replied. "The ships are ready. The crews are ready." Alan looked at the small fleet. "You know the odds." King smiled slightly. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Always. The odds have been against us since day one of this war. Hasn't stopped us yet." King's face grew serious. "The Araxians think they know us. They've studied us for years, but they missed something important." "What's that?" "Humans are at their most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose." King looked around at his crew, men and women checking weapons and systems. "Everyone here has lost someone to the Araxians. Family, friends, homes. We're not just fighting for survival anymore." Alan nodded slowly. "We're fighting for justice." "Exactly, sir." King straightened. "This time tomorrow, the Araxians will learn a lesson about humanity they never expected." Alan looked at the determined faces around him. For the first time, in 5 years he allowed himself to believe that humanity might have a chance after all. The day of humanity's last stand arrived with no special marker or warning. The sky above Earth looked the same as any other day, blue and clear in the areas not damaged by previous attacks. But in orbit and beyond, sensors detected the approach of the largest Araxian fleet ever assembled. In the underground command center, Admiral Alan Frost watched the main screen as red dots appeared, representing enemy ships. There were hundreds of them. "All defense platforms are ready," reported General Ellis. "Civilian shelters are sealed. Ground troops are in position in case they break through." Alan nodded, his face grim. He touched the old photo in his pocket, Laura and Ben, then looked at the tired but determined faces around him. "Send the signal to Commander King," he ordered. "Operation Nemesis is go." Far from Earth, hiding in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Callisto, 7 small ships powered up their engines. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Darius King received the message. "This is it, people," he announced to his crew. "Earth Defense Force is engaging the main Araxian fleet now. While they're distracted, we slip in, deliver the package, and change the course of this war." Lieutenant Frank Daniels, King's pilot, looked up from his controls. "Navigation is set, Commander. The virus is secure in all 7 ships." Dr. Natalie Collins sat strapped into a seat behind them. She wasn't military, but she had insisted on coming. The virus was her creation, and if anything went wrong, she needed to be there to fix it. "Remember," she said, "we need to get within 50 meters of their command ship's communications array. The virus has to directly interface with their quantum network." King nodded. "Lieutenant Daniels will get us there. Teams 2 through 7 will run interference." He turned to the communications officer. "Tell the other ships to launch. Maintain radio silence from here on." The 7 ships moved out from their hiding place, accelerating toward the distant battle near Earth. They were small and fast, modified with stealth technology reverse-engineered from captured Araxian vessels. If everything went according to plan, the enemy wouldn't detect them until it was too late. Back at Earth, the space around the planet had turned into chaos. The defense platforms fired constantly, filling the void with explosions. Earth's remaining warships engaged the front line of the Araxian fleet, fighting with a desperation born from knowing there was nowhere left to retreat. Admiral Frost coordinated the defense from the command center. "Group 3, focus fire on Sector 7. Group 5, fall back and regroup." He watched as human ships exploded one after another. Each lost ship meant lost lives, but each second of fighting bought more time for King's team to reach their target. In the middle of the Araxian fleet, a massive ship 3 times larger than any other hung back from the main battle. This was The Araxian command vessel, the hub of their hive mind network. This was King's target. As King's small fleet approached the battle zone, they split up, each taking a different path to avoid detection. 6 ships would create diversions, while King's vessel carried Dr. Collins and the primary virus payload directly to the command ship. Enemy ships at 2 o'clock, warned Daniels. 3 Araxian fighters had broken off from the main battle and were moving to intercept them. They've spotted us, King said. Team 3, Team 5, run your diversions. Now. 2 of the human ships suddenly broke cover, firing at the Araxian vessels before speeding away in different directions. The enemy took the bait, 2 fighters peeling off in pursuit. "One still on us," Daniels reported. King made a quick decision. "Bring us around that debris field, we'll lose them there." Daniels skillfully guided their ship through the floating wreckage of a destroyed Araxian cruiser. The pursuing fighter followed, firing energy beams that barely missed them. Suddenly, a hit rocked their ship. Warning alarms blared throughout the cabin. "Engine 3 is down," reported the engineering officer. "Hull breach in Section 4, sealing now." King gripped his seat as Daniels continued evasive maneuvers. "Can we still make it to the target?" "Yes, sir," Daniels replied, his face tight with concentration. "But we've lost too much speed. They'll catch us before we get there." From behind them, Dr. Collins spoke up. "What about Team 6? Are they still in position?" King checked his tactical display. "They're engaged with enemy ships near the command vessel's perimeter." The ship rocked again as another hit struck them. Systems flickered. "We need a distraction," King muttered. That's when Lieutenant Daniels made a decision. "Sir, my console is damaged. Transfer helm control to yours." As King looked puzzled, Daniels continued quietly. "I have a family photo too, sir. Mine's of my sister's kids on Mars." Before King could respond, Daniels unstrapped himself and ran toward the escape pod bay. "I'll give you your distraction. Get that virus to the target." "Daniels!" King shouted, but the lieutenant was already gone. Moments later, a small escape pod ejected from their ship, its engines modified to run hot. It shot directly toward the pursuing Araxian fighter, broadcasting on all frequencies. The enemy took the bait. The fighter changed course to intercept what it thought was fleeing officers with valuable information. Then the pod exploded, taking the Araxian ship with it. Lieutenant Frank Daniels had rigged the pod's power core to overload. Silence fell over King's Bridge. Then Dr. Collins spoke softly. "He saved us." King set his jaw and took the helm controls. "Then let's make sure it wasn't for nothing." As they approached the Araxian command ship, they saw that Teams 2 and 4 had also reached the perimeter but were engaged in fierce fighting. Team 3 had been destroyed. The status of the others was unknown. "We're going to have to punch through right here," King told his crew. "Weapons. Target their defensive batteries. We need a clear path to their communications array." The ship accelerated, taking fire from multiple directions as they made their final approach. More alarms sounded. Another engine failed. The bridge ceiling collapsed, injuring the weapons officer. 100 meters to target, King reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. 80 meters. The ship shuddered as a direct hit took out their main shields. 60 meters. Dr. Collins moved to the front, ready with the virus transmission unit. "We're not going to make it much closer," King said as the ship began to break apart around them. "Seal the bridge. Evacuate all other sections." He looked at Collins. "Can you transmit from here?" She shook her head. "It's not close enough. We need to board them." King made another quick decision. "Prepare for impact. We're ramming their communications array." He aimed the dying ship directly at the protruding structure on the Araxian command vessel. Collins braced herself, clutching the virus unit tightly. The impact threw everyone forward. Metal screamed as their ship tore into the Araxian vessel. When the motion finally stopped, King looked up through a shattered viewport. They had crashed directly into the communications array. "Everyone who can move, gear up," he ordered. "We're boarding. Dr. Collins, stay in the middle. We'll get you to their network core." 5 surviving crew members, including King and Collins, put on spacesuits with magnetic boots. Armed with weapons and the precious virus unit, they forced open the damaged airlock and stepped onto the Araxian ship. What they found inside would change the course of the war. Inside the Araxian command ship, everything was different from what humans had expected. The corridors were wide and curved, lit by a soft blue glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The air was breathable, but had a strange, sweet smell that made Commander King glad they had kept their helmets on. "Stay alert," King whispered to his team. "Their internal sensors will have detected our crash. Security forces will be on the way." Dr. Natalie Collins checked her small device that contained the virus. "The network core should be near the center of the ship. That's where we need to go." They moved quickly through the alien corridors following Collins' directions. The ship was strangely quiet. They had expected immediate resistance, but so far they had encountered no Araxians. "I don't like this," said Sergeant Grace Porter, one of the 2 remaining soldiers on King's team. "It feels like a trap." She had barely finished speaking when a panel in the wall slid open and 3 Araxian warriors stepped out. They were taller than the diplomats humans had first met years ago, with armor that seemed to flow like liquid over their bodies. Each carried a weapon that glowed with energy. "Down!" King shouted as he fired his rifle. The team dove for cover as the Araxians returned fire. Energy bolts hit the wall where they had been standing seconds before, melting the metal. Porter and Corporal Ryan West laid down covering fire while King pulled Dr. Collins behind a support column. "We need to keep moving," King said, checking his tactical map. "There's a maintenance tunnel 30 meters ahead that might lead us closer to the core." West was hit in the leg by an energy bolt. He cried out in pain but kept firing. "I'll hold them here," he said through gritted teeth. "The rest of you go." King hesitated but nodded. "We'll come back for you." Porter threw a smoke grenade to cover their movement, and King led Collins and Porter toward the maintenance tunnel. Behind them, they heard West's rifle firing repeatedly, then silence. The tunnel was narrow, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees. Collins led the way, following the signal from her device. "The core is just beyond this section," she whispered. They emerged into a vast chamber that stretched up and down beyond what they could see. In the center floated what looked like a giant crystal structure, pulsing with light and energy. Thousands of thin filaments connected it to the walls, ceiling, and floor. "That's it," Collins said in awe. "The quantum network core. It's connecting every Araxian in their fleet, maybe in their entire species." King was about to respond when Porter suddenly pushed him aside. An energy bolt struck her directly in the chest. She fell without a sound. King fired back at the Araxian guard that had appeared on a walkway above them. His shots found their mark, and the alien fell. "We need to hurry," King told Collins as they ran toward the core. "There will be more of them." They reached a control panel near the base of the crystal structure. Collins began working quickly, connecting her virus device to the alien technology. "This will take a few minutes," she said, her fingers moving rapidly. "I need to bypass their security protocols." King took up a defensive position, watching all approaches to the chamber. "I don't think we have a few minutes, Doctor." More Araxians were entering the chamber from multiple doorways. King counted at least 20 of them, moving with the perfect coordination that made them such deadly opponents. "Keep working," he told Collins as he began firing at the advancing aliens. "No matter what happens, get that virus uploaded." King fought with everything he had. Each shot was precise, dropping Araxians one by one. But there were too many. An energy bolt grazed his arm, burning through his suit and into his flesh. Another hit his leg, sending him to one knee. "Status, Doctor," he called, still firing. "Almost. There," Collins replied, her voice tight with tension. "The virus is uploading, but their system is fighting back." An Araxian appeared directly beside them, having moved with impossible speed. Before King could turn his weapon, the alien struck Collins, sending her flying across the platform. The virus device remained connected to the panel. King fired at point-blank range, killing the Araxian. He crawled to where Collins had landed. She was alive but badly injured. "It's still uploading," she gasped, looking at the device. "But one of us needs to complete the final sequence." More Araxians were closing in. King helped Collins back to the control panel. Her hands were shaking now, making it difficult for her to work. "Tell me what to do," King said, placing his weapon where he could grab it quickly. Collins explained the final commands. As King worked, she kept watch, picking up his fallen rifle. "There," King said finally. "Is that it?" Collins checked the display. "Yes, now we just need to—" She never finished her sentence. An energy bolt struck her directly in the back. With her last strength, she pushed a final button on the device, then collapsed into King's arms. "Rebecca," she whispered, using her second-in-command's name. "Finish what we started." Then she was gone. King gently laid her body down, then turned to face the advancing Araxians. He was surrounded, wounded, with no way out. But as he prepared for his final stand, something strange happened. The crystal core began to pulse with a different rhythm. The blue glow turned red, then purple. The Araxians around him suddenly stopped moving. Some clutched their heads while others simply froze in place. The virus was working. Throughout the Araxian fleet, confusion spread like wildfire. Ships stopped firing. Some began to drift aimlessly. Others fired on their own allies. In Earth's command center, Admiral Alan Frost watched in amazement as the enemy fleet fell into chaos. "What's happening?" asked General Ellis. "King did it," Alan said softly. "They got the virus into the network." The effect was more dramatic than anyone had anticipated. The virus didn't just disrupt the Araxians' coordination. It gave humans access to their entire communication network. Data began flooding into Earth's systems. Information about the Araxian collective, their conquests, their plans, everything. Most important was the discovery of 17 other species the Araxians had conquered over the centuries. Their locations, their current status, the ways they had been subjugated, it was all there. As the battle around Earth turned in humanity's favor, Admiral Frost made a decision. He opened a communication channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Frost. The tide has turned. The Araxians are vulnerable. But this is no longer just our fight." He paused, looking at the data about the other conquered species. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for all victims of the Araxian collective. Advance on the enemy fleet. Show no mercy, but take prisoners when possible. We have work to do beyond this battle." Across the solar system, humanity's remaining forces rallied. For the first time in 5 years, they pushed forward not in retreat, but in advance. On the Araxian command ship, Commander King found himself in control of the vessel's systems. The virus had given him access to everything. Despite his injuries, he began transmitting the Araxians' own tactical data to Earth's forces. As he worked, he discovered something that made his blood run cold. The Araxians had been preparing to harvest Earth just as they had done to other worlds. Billions would have been enslaved or killed. Humanity would have become just another footnote in the collective's history of conquest. "Not today," King said to himself as he continued to send information to Earth. "Not ever." The war had entered a new phase, and for the first time humanity had hope. 3 months had passed since the battle that changed everything. Admiral Alan Frost stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Retribution, looking out at the stars. The ship had once been called the Horizon, the same vessel he had commanded during first contact with the Araxians. They had rebuilt it, renamed it, and made it the symbol of humanity's unexpected comeback. Beside him stood Commander Darius King, recovered from his injuries, but with new scars to match the old ones. They were approaching the Araxian homeworld, leading a fleet unlike any seen before in the galaxy. "Fleet status report," Alan said to his communications officer. "All ships in formation, Admiral. The Centauri vessels are on our left flank, the Proxima ships on our right. The Epsilon and Tau contingents are maintaining rear guard." Alan nodded. The fleet contained ships from 5 different species, all former victims of Araxian conquest, who had risen up when they received Earth's transmissions about the vulnerability in the collective's network. Together, they had pushed the Araxians back system by system, liberating planets and gathering allies along the way. "The Araxian Supreme Consciousness is hailing us," reported the communications officer. Alan and King exchanged a glance. This was the moment they had been fighting toward for years. "On screen," Alan ordered. The view screen filled with the image of an Araxian unlike any they had seen before. Larger, with scales that shifted through complex patterns of color, and 6 eyes instead of 4. This was the leader of the entire collective, the central mind that guided their hive consciousness. "Humans of Earth," the Supreme Consciousness spoke, its voice oddly melodic. "We request an end to hostilities. We offer terms of surrender that will be beneficial to both our peoples." Alan's face remained stone-like. "We're listening. We will provide your species with advanced technology, medical knowledge beyond your imagining, access to 100 habitable worlds. All we ask is that you spare our homeworld and allow our species to continue." King stepped forward. "Just like you offered peaceful exchange to the 17 other species before us? Before you harvested their worlds and enslaved their people?" The Supreme Consciousness's colors shifted to darker tones. "We followed our evolutionary imperative. Our species evolved to expand, to absorb, to grow. We did what we were designed by nature to do." Alan's voice was cold. "So did we. Humans evolved to protect our own, to remember those who harmed us, and to ensure justice is served." He turned to his tactical officer. "Status of the coalition forces? All ships in position surrounding the Araxian homeworld. Ground forces ready to deploy on your command." Alan nodded and turned back to the screen. "You've seen what we can do. Your fleet is scattered. Your conquered worlds have risen against you. Your network has been compromised. For the first time in your history, the Araxian collective faces extinction." The Supreme Consciousness's colors pulsed rapidly, a sign of fear they had learned. "What do you want? Resources? Territory? Anything can be negotiated." Alan looked down at the small photo he still carried. Laura and Ben on Europa before. Everything changed. Then he looked up and delivered humanity's final message. "War has a price. Now you'll pay it." The Supreme Consciousness seemed to shrink back. "You will destroy us? After condemning us for our conquests, you will commit the same crime?" Alan shook his head. "No, that's where you're wrong. That's what you never understood about humans." He nodded to Commander King, who transmitted a file to the Araxian homeworld. "These are our terms," Alan continued. "Your military will be completely dismantled. All weapons technology will be surrendered. The Araxian collective will be confined to your home system for 100 years, under supervision of the new Galactic Coalition." The Supreme Consciousness's colors shifted again, this time to something like confusion. "You're not going to destroy us?" "Destruction isn't justice," Alan said. "You will live, but you will make amends. You will provide resources to rebuild the worlds you damaged. You will share medical knowledge to heal those you harmed. Your scientists will help restore environments you destroyed." King stepped forward again. "And you will bear witness. On your capital world, we will build a monument with the names of every being who died because of your conquests. Every day your people will see it and remember the price of war." The Coalition. Fleet remained in position as the Araxian leadership considered the terms. Throughout the homeworld, Araxians watched and waited. For the first time in their history, they faced not conquest but accountability. 3 days later, in a ceremony broadcast across a dozen star systems, the Supreme Consciousness signed the treaty that ended the war. Representatives from all 18 formerly conquered or targeted species stood witness. After the ceremony, Admiral Frost walked alone through a garden on the Araxian capital world. Commander King found him there, staring at a small sapling that had been planted as part of the memorial. "Did we do the right thing?" Alan asked quietly. "After everything they did, letting them live seems—" "It was the right choice," King said firmly. "Destroying them would have made us like them. This way, they have a chance to become something better." Alan nodded slowly. "Dr. Collins would have approved, I think." "She would have. Her virus gave us access to their network, but it was her humanity that made her create it to disrupt rather than destroy. King looked up at the alien sky. We've all lost too much to throw away what makes us human. 1 year later, Alan Frost, no longer an admiral but now the first human ambassador to the Galactic Coalition, stood before representatives of 23 species. The coalition had grown as word spread of the alliance that had defeated the feared Araxian collective. The path forward isn't simple, he told the gathered representatives. We come from different worlds, different biologies, different histories, but we share something important. We all know the cost of conflict and we all choose cooperation instead. He looked around the chamber at faces and forms that would have been unimaginable to him when he first welcomed the Araxian diplomats aboard the Horizon years ago. Humanity's journey to the stars began with loss and pain, he continued. But it has brought us here to this moment of possibility. Together, we will build something that none of our civilizations could have created alone. At the center of the coalition headquarters stood a simple monument. It bore the names of all who had died in the conflicts with the Araxians, humans, Centauri, Proxima, Epsilon, Tau, and others. And at its base was carved a simple message. Remember the price of war. Choose a better path. Across the galaxy, that message spread. On the Araxian homeworld, children who had once been taught to conquer now learned to create. On Earth, humanity looked to the stars not with fear, but with hope. And on 1,000 worlds in between, beings of all kinds remembered those who had been lost and worked to build something worthy of their sacrifice. The price had been paid. A new path had begun.